Hey guys, it's Echo. I feel like I see videos online constantly of people making tutorials saying, here's how you can find your art style, or people asking for advice on forums saying, how do I find my personal art style? There is, of course, nothing wrong with either of these things. An artist's style is like a silent mark telling the world, I was here whenever someone looks at the artwork. But isn't an art style just a culmination of an artist's visual library and their tastes? We take inspiration from other artists and experiences in order to shape how we draw, so I prefer to take a more relaxed version to finding my style, letting my inspiration and enjoyment of art dictate what it all looks like. That being said, I thought it would be cool to take a look at 10 of my main inspirations. Some old, some new, but all leading to my current style. I'll be drawing my new persona for all of them. This one is much easier to draw and frankly matches my usual vibe a little better than the other one, so hopefully the change isn't too jarring for you, but enough chit chat, let's draw! I started off with one of the earliest inspirations for art I had, one that many artists of my generation shared: anime. Thing is, I only actually have really watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Most of my inspiration at that time came from the Vocaloid designs. Their hair was soft and flowing, their eyes huge like kittens, and I loved it. Unfortunately, my Vocaloid days were before the fandom was all that large. It was active for sure, but I didn't find anyone in my life to match my energy, so slowly, over time, the excitement for Vocaloid began to fade, and with it, my interest in emulating the anime style. I still really like it, but there's just not been many animes to successfully catch my interest enough to inspire me to create. Except Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And let me tell you, it really did capture my attention. If you've never seen the show, you might want to skip ahead a bit. This part definitely has some spoilers, but oh man, Pride's character influenced heavily my love of eyes. I've never managed to make a character that captures what I want to capture with that aesthetic, but my heart yearns for the perfect, moody, many-eyed character for me to play around with in some world or other. And don't even get me started on Colonel Mustang. He was one of my first gender envies. I wanted to be him so bad. Honestly, he might be the reason that I've always thought I would be a firebender in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And as I'm sure many would agree, he's kinda hot. Now, as far as inspiration that's continued on in my art goes, I can't honestly say there's all that much. I tend to prefer thicker line art, whereas the show has really fine, clean lines. I don't understand clothing folds at all, which the style relies on heavily to create lines of motion to guide the eye, and the proportions are somehow more realistic than I usually draw, despite being an actual anime, a genre of animation infamous for being non-realistic in its proportions. Still, after some frustration surrounding the line art and clothing folds, I felt pretty happy with this piece. I don't know that it's show accurate, but I think you can definitely tell where the inspiration was from, though it was definitely humbling to see where I needed to study my anatomy and cloth. On to the second style, the Owl House. I promise there's only 3 shows I took inspiration from, the rest are non-corporate artists. I actually didn't watch this show until 2023, just after coming out as trans, so it has a really warm place in my heart. That point of time was definitely tumultuous, and I took a lot of comfort watching and rewatching and watching it again. I could definitely see my art begin to reflect it at the height of watching it. For some reason, my hands in particular began to take a very Owl House feel, which is definitely not what I would have expected. Now, once again, I was fighting for my life with the fine lines that the Owl House employed. I wish I understood how people can take such tiny details and make them so clean. My hands are way too shaky to do it easily. Otherwise, the style was pretty straightforward to emulate, relatively speaking. The way it simplified clothes and anatomy is definitely something I see reflected in my own art, and the hair that they tend to use is very simple in a nice way, as animation tends to be. Of course, if I'm going to draw my Sona in the Owl House universe, I had to give him their own talisman and magic circle color. It took me a bit to decide what I wanted the talisman to be, but I ended up deciding on a chickadee, my favorite bird. They're just such silly little guys. I mean, look at them, tiny and silly and mildly dumb. I love them to death. The talisman's name is Pebble because she likes to collect pebbles, and she and my Sona would be in the Bard Coven, I think. Overall, I really liked this one too. I honestly think this is the most accurate one out of all of them, even though the fine lines continue to kick my teeth. I think the tired little guy turned out pretty cute. This style, the third style. Well, I'm going to be really honest, I didn't really enjoy this one. I don't love the final product, and I didn't really enjoy making it. This style is My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, my original muse, before even Vocaloid. back when I was just drawing the same thing over and over again, me and my friends doing a sort of floating pose that my friend had directly taught me how to make, with our hairs flowing around us dramatically. But I thought, they actually have an anthropomorphic cat in the My Little Pony universe. I had just watched the movie for nostalgia purposes, and he was in there. I don't know that I remember his name, and his design was not my favorite thing in the world, but it was pretty cute. I'll just need to transfer the style from the movie into the original show style, which is what I'm trying to emulate, and we'll be a-okay. I don't want to be too harsh, because if you like this, then that's really great, but this design for Anthro Cats is just not for me. It feels simultaneously stiff and childish. The head is just really big. I like Artstyles with big heads, but this feels disproportionate and kind of unintentional. The hands are kind of uncomfortable with the way the claw just kind of looks like an extension of flesh, and the hair looks like he just slapped a toupee on and called it a day. There's definitely more I could complain about, but I really regret not just turning this style into a pony form. I think it would have made it easier to explore what I was thinking and feeling about the art style, and I wouldn't have been so frustrated by the process and the finished product both. Oh well, you live and you learn. Quickly. You live and learn quickly, because the next art style I decided to emulate was an artist I like on YouTube, Halo, from Halo 12. They make some of the most beautiful and sinister My Little Pony fan art I've ever seen. Their style is so elegant and refined in a way that I feel like I'm always striving for, but never really reaching in my own style. And, learning from my last mistake, I made my Sona into a pony. I kind of had to, honestly. I couldn't find any art from Halo that wasn't of ponies. Halo's style has really fine lines, but they allow them to be a little bit messier. It's not as clean, and that gives it a lot of life, in my opinion. They have this really interesting fading hatching effect that I think I want to include in my art moving forward, along with their really nice mix of sharp angles and gentle curves. And their hair! The way Halo draws hair captures my heart in a way I cannot explain. It's beautiful and flowing and lively, while still being more simplified like I like. I definitely hope to practice their style of hair for future art pieces of my own. Turning my Sona into a Pegasus, I gave them a feather cutie mark. It represents his love of storytelling, writing, and drawing all. Capturing his hair was definitely the most challenging part. Those little swoops on the front are the most iconic part of their design in my mind, and that was really hard to translate into pony form. Still, I'm really proud of this piece. While I definitely think the back of the mane and tail aren't nearly as elegant and refined as Halo's, and some of the line art was maybe a little too messy, I think I managed to capture the essence of their art pretty well. And I learned a lot doing it too. Moving right along to the fifth style, let's talk about another artist who I've admired since I was in high school, Catherine, otherwise known as Delightful. Typically, Catherine makes these beautiful, hand-painted and designed fashion dolls of various characters she has created, which is pretty hard to translate into a 2D art style. Thankfully, she does have a few sketchbook videos, and I found some good 2D references on her Instagram too. Catherine's style was another one that really highlighted to me the fact that I need to work on my anatomy and clothing understanding. The pose feels stiffer than hers ever do, and I think that's just because I don't understand the way the body is moving underneath the clothes as well as she does. Still, I really enjoyed emulating her style. The softness and expressive colors have long been an inspiration to my own art, and her eyes definitely had a huge impact on how I drew eyes for a really long time. I think the two biggest struggles for me were the mouth and the color for the line art. I don't know that I got either one perfectly, but it's something I'm really interested in. I don't know if Catherine just uses multiple colors in her line art, or if she's got slightly more cohesive palettes than I do, because mine ended up looking just a little bit muddied. My mouth also looks weirdly crooked. I'm used to drawing really big, overly expressive mouths, and restraining myself was proving really hard. But I mean, come on, look at this. I did pretty good. The anatomy and clothing knowledge gap beat me up a little bit, but this turned out so cute. I love it so much. I definitely think I'm going to try to remember to include more curved lines within my straight lines like she does, because it adds so much dynamicism to the piece with very little effort. Style 6 is an artist I found more recently, during the 2020 lockdown, Audrey from Oddity. She makes the most expressive artwork I think I have ever seen. She has a really tight mastery over movement, expressions, and shape language that I definitely do not have, and she is so good at pushing them to their absolute extremes. To be honest, I wasn't sure how I was going to pull this one off. Going into it, I realized almost immediately that I did not know how to translate Audrey's dramatic movement, impressive shape language, and expressive faces and body language into my Sona. I ended up trying to use a very expressive pose based around an art piece she did recently for the Golden Song and K-pop Demon Hunters, and pushed the shape in the clothing my Sona wears as much as possible. At this point, I was beginning to gain some confidence in my lines. Audrey uses fine lines, but I was drawing with confidence, my pen sweeping across the tablet and not wobbling like a child's first going ice skating. Or myself, honestly. I pushed the pose, adding some tea spilling out of a mug, made the hair bouncy and curly, elongated the tail for the drama, and ended up with an absolute diva. Is the diva that is also my Sona particularly like Audrey's drawing style? Well, no, not really, to be honest. I can definitely see the bones of what I was trying to do, but I just don't have the understanding of shapes or expressions to make something like she does. But I have to tell you, this artwork is one of my favorite, just for the movement and shapes I did manage to pull out of it. Coming in at style 7 is Star, from the Starfish Face. I have been on a bit of a binging kick for Star's content recently. Every time I watch her videos, I find myself inspired to go create something. Usually working on the fantasy world I'm currently making that may or may not have a video coming out sometime in the coming months. Cough cough. She just has so much passion for her worlds and characters that it's honestly infectious. She is the reason I took to drawing wrinkled noses sometimes to add some extra dimension to my characters' expressions, and also who inspired the approximate sizes of the eyes of my characters, so drawing her style was an absolute blast. I will say, I struggled a little bit with the proportions. At this point, I had been working tirelessly for several weeks, just drawing day after day, studying styles, making pose thumbnails, and searching for references, and I definitely think this is the point where a little bit of burnout was starting to settle in. I was trying so hard to push through it, but I definitely started to cut corners. I barely did any shading here, and I completely forgot to color in the nose, to name just a few issues I ran into with Star's style. Still, something about her art felt way more approachable than most of the other styles had been so far. The folds of the sweater seemed to just settle perfectly into place as I tried to reference her art, the hair shape felt dynamic and lively, and the cat ears are just inexplicably adorable. I really love Star's style, and maybe someday I'll try hers again, because I think I could learn a lot from her shading, highlights, and scene design, none of which I touched here at all. But here's the finished piece. I think it went better than my Oddity style drawing. Star uses thicker line art, which I love, has bigger eyes, which I love, and while she definitely has a better understanding of anatomy than I do, her style simplified it in a way that was familiar and similar to my own. I felt like I got it pretty good, and I had a pretty fun time doing it too. Style number 8 belongs to Blue Biscuit, aka Blue. I could not find Blue's pronouns, so I'll be referring to them as, well, them. If you happen to know what they use, comment a link to wherever you learned it, so I can correct that. Blue's art is deliciously messy. It's colorful, but often very moody, and they add so much life and texture to it. Once again, I felt that my burnout was severely affecting how well I could study their style, but I was still having so much fun, I found myself checking the references perhaps a little less often than I should have. Blue tends to favor an anime style, and tends to make these really cool poses where the character's hands are near their face, framing it somehow. I ended up trying to use one of the poses they had on one of the art pieces I found, but I added my Sona's large puffy sleeves, and, well, I don't think I did it quite right. The hands look a little broken, but otherwise I actually think I did a pretty good job with the pose proportions. One thing I hadn't really realized until I was trying to study their style is that Blue uses a deceptive amount of texture in their art. They add hatching, patches of contrasting color, and layers of matching colors to add many different layers of visual interest. They have a really tight grasp of color theory, and they use that to their full advantage as well. In general, I really want to try to study their color and texture more in the future, because I feel like one piece of art wasn't enough to really get a good idea of what their style can do. Nonetheless, this is what my piece looked like in the end. Like I said, the arm's mildly broken, but honestly I don't mind. The whole point of this exercise is to study and learn, not to make perfect art. And Blue's style was just so much fun to do, I might try making a few pieces using some of the techniques I picked up doing this on my own. Maybe I'll adopt a messier style for my own art. With only 2 styles to go, I turned to an artist that you all probably know, June, from Actually Ray, or Ginger Ninja OWO. I feel like it's really easy to tell that they are the main inspiration for my expressions in my art. June has the most dynamic, lively, expressive art in the universe, which I know I keep saying about everyone, but I mean it this time. June is pretty open about their attitude towards art. They draw what brings them joy, and they don't spend too long on it. This means their art is often loose and messy and passionate in a way that's hard to capture with drawn-out, carefully made pieces. Unfortunately, emulating that was really hard because they also have a way better understanding of the foundations than I do, I think. Nonetheless, I did my best to capture the vibes their art has. To be honest, I don't think I did as good a job on this one, but I think that just boils down to the lack of deep understanding of the foundations that June has. And also, probably a bit of burnout. Still, the movement in this piece was pretty good, which is what I was hoping for. I kind of wish I picked a more extreme pose, since that's what tends to make June's artwork stand out in my mind, along with the expressions. Still, I'm pretty happy with it regardless. And last on my list of 10 art styles, but certainly not least, I bring to you a study of Haley from Lavender Town. I've been a fan of Haley since I became serious about art, which happened about my sophomore year of college. Her style is incredibly unique. Most famous is, of course, the way she draws eyes. Her art style has a huge eyes with unusual shapes for the irises, usually meant to represent the character's mood. I wanted to capitalize on this idea, and so decided to draw my Sona walking in the rain. I love the rain. Whenever I have to walk and it's raining, I don't actually bring an umbrella because I love how it feels hitting my skin, and the way the water droplets dampen the world around you even as they pound into the ground, making a rhythmic, constant hiss. It's enthralling, so I decided to give this drawing a prop, as I have a couple times. I don't know what possessed me to manage to articulate really well Haley's hand style. I was referencing one of her art pieces while trying to change it enough to be the right angle that I was trying to draw, and somehow I came out with a near perfect replica of how she draws hands. I'm absolutely flabbergasted and kind of impressed with myself, but the rest of it definitely feels like someone tried to emulate her style, which, to be fair, is exactly what it is. I think I should have made the head a little bigger to make more room for some of the details on the face, but overall, I think this was a pretty decent study of Haley's style. I really like how she draws characters. Her style of blushing is something I've been doing for about a year now, though I think I may adopt her method of adding some spots of blushed line art to specific areas. And here's all the art styles together. I can personally tell pretty easily where I was starting to feel exhausted from the scope of this video. I knew this challenge was going to be, well, challenging, but I didn't expect it to be quite as draining as it turned out to be. Nonetheless, I'm proud of all these, even if it felt like the final drawing wasn't what I hoped it would be. I went back to my own style after this with a lot of confidence I didn't have before, and I would consider that an absolute success. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, consider subscribing so you can see more of my art in the future. I don't know that I'll be making more challenges that are quite this intense, at least not for a while, but I'll probably have more design videos in the future, and I'll also be making a lot of videos trying to further my skills as an artist and making my style what I dream it can be. Ah yes, the end card. I don't know if I entirely understand the purpose of these, but I think they're kind of fun. I need to remake the animation I had here, so for now you just get a still screen, which is kind of boring. Oh well, such is life, or what have you.